For this video, I'm going to do a review on the key highlights of production and cost. Okay, let us first recap on the two time period. Now in the short run, this is a time period where the firm is unable to change all its factors of production, aka resources, meaning that at least there's one factor of production which is fixed. So this would mean that in the short run, the firm would face constraints. However, in the long run, this would be a time period where the firm is able to change all these factors of production. For example, like expanding the shop space, buying more equipment, or buying more machine. Let us now discuss on the two key types of costs faced by a firm when operating a business. So the first type would be fixed costs. So fixed costs are costs that do not vary directly with the level of production. Now meaning that it does not depend on the level of output. So if you have zero production, zero output, you will still incur a certain amount of fixed costs. Alright, so example would be like rent, alright, the machine you bought, and the building, etc. Whereas for variable costs, now these are costs that vary directly with the level of output and production, which means that the more production you have, the more output you have, the more variable costs. So when you produce nothing, it would mean that there will be zero variable costs. So some examples of variable costs would be wages, raw materials, etc. So which means that these two costs, total fixed costs and total variable costs, will give us the total cost of the firm. Let us now demonstrate the fixed and variable costs using the graph. Okay, so the x-axis would be the output, the quantity, and the y-axis would be the cost. Okay, so total fixed cost you can see here is a horizontal line, meaning that it is independent of output. So regardless of the quantity of a good produced, it will remain at a certain amount. So here, example, you can see it is 500. Okay, so if you produce 100 units, it is still 500. You produce 200 units, it is still $500. Okay, while for the total variable cost, I can see that it starts at the origin 0, meaning that if there's no production, the total variable cost would be 0. But you can see that it will increase as output increases. Okay. Now for the total cost, it will be above the total variable cost because it includes the total fixed cost. However, it doesn't start at the origin because regardless of whether you produce or not, remember, you will always incur the fixed cost. Hence, the total cost will always start above, alright, the origin. Okay. So if you look at the white arrow now, you can see from here, alright, this gap here would be the $500, okay, across all levels of output level. It will be the same as here, this vertical distance here as well. So this vertical distance here would also be $500 at every output level. Let us move on by discussing average cost. So we'll first start off with average fixed cost. So the formula for average fixed cost is taking the total fixed cost divided by the quantity, which is the output. So how does it look like? It looks like this. So it's a downward sloping curve, okay, for the AFC. Alright. However, the AFC can never be 0 because remember, no matter how much your production is, you will still incur the fixed cost, right? So hence AFC can never be 0 as well. Okay, let us carry on by discussing the rest of the average cost as well as the marginal cost. Now for the ATC, which is the AC, average total cost, you can just take the total cost divided by total output, total quantity. Or, now if you have the AFC and the ABC, you can just add them together to give you the ATC. Okay, now for ABC, you can just have to take the total variable cost and divide by the quantity. You will also get the average variable cost. Now for marginal cost, please remember to find the change in total cost and dividing the change in quantity. Likewise, you can also use the change in total variable cost and dividing by the change in quantity. So let's demonstrate this cost using the graph right now. Okay. Alright, so you can see that the yellow curve here is the average variable cost. Okay, the red curve here is the average total cost. It will always be above the average variable cost because it includes the average fixed cost. Alright, now the marginal cost here, you can see it's like a J. Alright, and it will cut through these two curves, which is the cut through the yellow and the red curve. Alright. Now at this point here, now you can see that this is where LDMR was set in at the lowest point of the marginal cost. Okay. In addition, the marginal cost will cut through and intersect the minimum points of both the AVC and the ATC. Alright. Now the next important part is, I can see that this gap here, which means the distance, okay, the vertical distance between the ATC and the AVC, we can actually find the AFC, alright, across all the output level. Okay, let us now discuss the relationship between the marginal cost and average cost. Okay, so when marginal cost is less than average cost, as you can see that this blue curve here, the marginal cost is lower than the yellow average variable and lower than the average total. Okay, when this happens, the average cost will decrease as output increases. You can see the red color portion here is going down as you produce more. Alright, same for the yellow part here. It's going down, decreases as you produce more. Alright, now whereas when marginal cost is more than average cost, okay, now you can see that the upper portion here, this blue color, the marginal cost is higher than the red and the yellow. Alright, so when this happens, okay, you can see the average cost will now increase, go up here. Likewise for the yellow part here is going up here. Okay, so this video, this part of the video here will enable us to explain why the average total cost and the average variable cost is a U-shape. Okay, likewise, in addition, it is also U-shaped because due to the concept of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, moving to the end of our video soon. Alright, now we will learn how to derive average costs in the long run. Okay, so every firm has a set of short run average cost curve, okay, aka the SRAC. And each SRAC is associated to a fixed factor of production, such as the plant size, the factory size. Okay, and you can see here, alright, these are all the SRAC. Okay, so we have SRAC 1, probably 1 factory, 2 factory, SRAC 3 factory, SRAC 4 factory. Okay, now the minimum points here for each SRAC, okay, will come together and allow us to form the LRAC. So you can see that the LRAC here is like an envelope, okay, of the minimum points of the SRAC. So in the long run, the firm can decide on which plant size to adopt, alright, to choose to reap the lowest cost. Okay, so I can see that this part here will enable us to get the lowest cost at SRAC 3. So probably three factories here. Okay, in the earlier slide, we have already learned how to derive the LRAC, right, by taking the minimum points of the SRAC. Okay, now let us learn two new concepts, economies of scale as well as diseconomies of scale. Alright, so what is the meaning of economies of scale? Now this would mean that falling average costs as output increases. Now this concept will be experienced in the long run. Okay, because in the long run, remember, there are no more constraints, so you will not experience LDMR anymore. Okay, so for economies of scale, it could be due to internal reasons and it could be due to external reasons, right? So if it's internal reasons leading to economies of scale, meaning falling average costs, it will be demonstrated here. Alright, in the downward sloping part of the LRAC. Okay, however, if it's due to external reasons, okay, leading to economies of scale, falling average costs, the whole LRAC will shift downwards. So the opposite of economies of scale will be diseconomies of scale. Alright, this would mean rising average costs as output increases. Okay, for the same thing, it could be due to internal reasons and it could be due to external reasons. So if it's due to internal reasons, right, it will be demonstrated this way. Okay, in the upward sloping part of the LRAC curve. Okay, now if it's due to external reason, the whole LRAC will shift upwards. Okay, so this would mean that the average cost has increased.